right. We're gonna break through.
Hold this position.
We are talking about the movie 1,000 Yard Stare, which comes to us on the 4th of June 2018 by High Flyers Entertainment, and this one is directed by Aaron Kermey. And this is really a story of the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder, or war fatigue as it was known in kind of World War II. And it focuses on this character called Roland, who obviously served in World War II. And we see both scenes with him fighting in the war, in battle, and also when he's captured by the Nazis, and also his life after the war, and basically how he's dealing with it, and how he is essentially reliving these kind of battles on a daily basis, and essentially how it affects his life and those around him. So let's talk about the 1,000 Yard Stare. So this is a lower budget film, first of all, so you have to kind of bear that in mind whilst watching it. And obviously I think war movies tend to be, you know, ambitious if they kind of haven't got kind of a huge budget for this kind of, you know, obviously the tanks and extras and kind of things like that. Nonetheless, they've given it a go. So how do they do? So let's talk about the positives first of all. I've got to say this is an interesting kind of dichotomy between an action film and a kind of a psychological drama, really. And it really does kind of make you feel the confusion, the paranoia and the guilt of a kind of someone suffering from, you know, post-traumatic stress. It's certainly Roland's character in this case of the movie, and is really a kind of a harrowing look at how war affects men. I think for the budget is actually, you know, quite an interesting idea, and the film succeeds in kind of giving you a sense of confusion and kind of really kind of you just don't know what's going on and kind of what's real, and that it's basically making you feel through Roland's character's shoes ultimately, all this stuff kind of going on around him, and how it does that. It kind of is showing you little snippets of things in different kind of times. So we've got things before the war, we've got kind of things during war, and different points during the war, during battle, while he's been captured, things like that. And it's all kind of like woven together, it kind of like with different flashes at different times. So it kind of gives you this sense of just overwhelming and kind of like confusion, and you see him react obviously and kind of while he's at home, and obviously he's having all these kind of flashbacks. So it does kind of put you in the driving seat of what it's like to be a kind of a veteran. But that doesn't work as well. Although I would say that I feel it succeeds in giving you the experience of that kind of post-traumatic stress. At the same time, as a narrative structure, it doesn't work quite as well. And the reason I say that is because it's not a particularly long film, so I don't feel like we have a great deal of kind of characterization with Roland's character kind of before this, so it's kind of hard to you know, buy in much to his character. We do see a few things, but in one hand they actually go a little bit over schmaltzy with it. But the film as a narrative structure, where it's kind of flashing between all of these kind of different kind of time zones, and ends up being a little bit confusing, and you can never really you never really feel like you're buying into one particular scene, because it kind of keeps flashing there, you know, backwards and forwards, and not just even between two time zones, between multiple time zones. And because of that, you never really are committed into the kind of the narrative story of this movie. So I feel it succeeds in maybe giving you that idea of what it's like to have all these kind of like things going on in your mind all at once, and kind of having you that crazy kind of like confusion that you might feel. But at the same time, because of that, the narrative is affected, unfortunately. So you can never really feel invested in the story. I've got to say the dialogue is kept to a relatively minimum here. However, there's a few scenes here where I feel the acting isn't particularly good. There's one scene where a group of, and this is more kind of after the war, where a group of Roland's friends are having dinner, and I've got to be honest with you, it's it's a bit of a poorly acted scene by some of the cast. It's only one scene really, but the acting there isn't fantastic, I'm not going to lie, and it's of a stark difference between some of the other acting that we see throughout the movie. He's captured by these two Nazis at one point, and I think the relationship between the three of them, even though they speak in German, which I did appreciate rather than English with a German accent, that was an interesting dichotomy. Even though I couldn't understand what they were saying, there's not subtitles in the screen that I got. It was, you could have got the sense of what was going on, that was well acted, but in the dinner scene, I've got to be honest with you, it was quite horrible. The budget also shows through in this film. The way the action sequences are shot, it's very kind of close up. So the camera is very kind of close to people firing gun. We get very kind of few, like, you know, panning shots or long shots really. So you can never really see the kind of the field of battle. And that's clearly because of budget restraints. The ones that we do get, and we have kind of like CG explosions and things like that, again, you can tell that they are cheaper effects basically. There are a couple of instances where it looks okay, and but ultimately it kind of looks a little cheap and a little fake, you know. Maybe not the movie's fault, and obviously this is clearly why they've gone for a kind of a more handheld approach, and kind of these very kind of close-up shots and stuff, so you can't really see what's going on because they simply can't afford to fill obviously this screen up with effects or kind of extras. There's a couple of scenes where it does look okay, and then there are a couple of people getting shot that does look, you know, pretty pretty realistic. But it's a relatively bloodless movie, if I'm completely honest, and maybe a couple of exceptions here and there. But considering obviously how many people died in this, it's kind of you know, relatively bloodless. And I've got to be honest with you as well. I feel the character growth here wasn't a lot. I feel it could have benefited from having a little bit more kind of time at the beginning, getting to know Roland's character, and then kind of maybe we would kind of be more willing to go through this journey with him. So it's a strange thing to feel, because of the choices that were made, it succeeds in some areas, but ultimately the same decisions make it fail in others. So it does give you that, like I've said, you know, it will kind of make you feel, you may be experiencing, if you've never obviously served in the military, it maybe give you just a glimpse of maybe what it's like to live in this world where you're constantly being barraged by these kind of memories and experiences of combat. So that in that respect, I feel it succeeds. It'd be interesting to hear from anyone who maybe has suffered from you know, post-traumatic stress, and if it's a kind of maybe an accurate description of it, basically. But when you're watching it as a film, on the other hand, those choices make the film suffer. However, I would say it does a good job of what I think it intended to do. Maybe, you know, as a film, you can kind of feel you don't get particularly invested in it, but I feel as an experience it potentially does work. So I'll give this movie a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.